Imagine technology acting like a kind of, well, magic wand, opening doors that were once completely shut. In Vietnam, since about 1998, IT has really been that catalyst for visually impaired individuals. It's transformed lives, it's opened up pathways to education that honestly were pretty much unimaginable before. And we've seen this remarkable shift, Today, around 100 visually impaired students every year are actually attending university. They're equipped to access materials, to learn. It's an incredible achievement, really. But this progress immediately brings up a crucial question for you listening and for all of us. What happens after they graduate? Are those employment opportunities truly inclusive? Do they match the skills these graduates have worked so hard for?
That's exactly the paradox, isn't it? And that's what we're diving into today. Our insights are drawn from a really groundbreaking 2024 research report. It's from the Sao Mai Center for the Blind in Vietnam. The title is Towards Inclusive Employment for Persons with Visual Impairment Who Have Completed Higher Education. And what makes this study so powerful, I think, is its really comprehensive approach. It's actually part of a bigger regional initiative funded by the Nippon Foundation. It covers Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines. The Vietnam study, led by Sao Mai, went really deep. They wanted to understand both the capabilities, which are impressive, and the actual real-world employment outcomes.
Okay, so a regional scope, but with this deep focus on Vietnam. Yeah. How did Sao Mai get such a detailed picture? What kind of research did they actually do?
They used a very thorough methodology. It wasn't just, a simple survey. They gathered data through extensive online surveys, reaching 75 visually impaired individuals who'd been through higher education. But crucially, they didn't stop there. They did in-depth interviews with 23 people. And this was a really diverse group, the visually impaired individuals themselves, obviously, but also their parents, employers, university lecturers, even government officials. And on top of that, they ran 4 structured focus group discussions. Again, bringing together students, parents, employers, officials. So it's this multi-method approach that gives us, a really robust and current perspective.
That sounds incredibly thorough, a real 360-degree view. Okay, so with that solid foundation, what were the main findings? What's the reality for these graduates?
Well, the primary finding, and it's quite stark, is this significant disconnect. Despite having completed higher education, a really substantial portion of visually impaired individuals in Vietnam struggle. They struggle to find formal, suitable employment. The survey showed that 34.7%, so over a third, weren't employed full-time. That means they were either unemployed or underemployed, doing jobs potentially below their skill level. And it makes you ask, right, if they've done the work, got the degree, why is this professional door still so hard to open?
Over 30%, that's a huge gap. And I imagine it's not down to just one single thing. What are the main hurdles they're facing?
No, it's definitely multifaceted. Systemic factors, really. First, the educational journey itself still has obstacles. Yes, electronic lesson plans and digital docs are more common now, about 55% accessible, the report says. But producing Braille books, still very expensive. And converting other materials, especially things like scanned documents, that can take weeks. So students might get accessible materials after their exams or even after the whole semester ends for things like audiobooks. That puts them at a disadvantage right away.
So the essential tools for learning are often late or incomplete. That's tough. What about inside the classroom, the teaching itself?
That's another key area. There's a noticeable lack of, truly inclusive teaching methods. Universities often don't have specific programs tailored for visually impaired students. And sometimes, believe it or not, students are even denied admission to fields they're interested in if those fields are, perceived to need visual control, even if adaptations are possible. The report actually shares this quite telling story about a visually impaired kindergarten teacher. She was denied a job because the principal insisted she do tasks needing clear vision, like telling medicines apart, instead of, reassigning her to things she could easily do, like teaching singing or washing dishes. It just shows a real lack of understanding from employers sometimes.
Wow, that's incredibly frustrating. It really points to those deeper issues, doesn't it? Negative perceptions, maybe outdated attitudes playing a big role.
Exactly. That came through very clearly. Widespread negative social prejudices. And just a lack of accurate information among employers about what visually impaired individuals can do. Many still seem to view disability employment through a sort of charity lens rather than a human rights one, which means they're often unprepared, inexperienced in actually welcoming visually impaired candidates. They might just reject an application as soon as they see the candidate is visually impaired, regardless of qualifications. And of course, this is all happening against the backdrop of a tougher global economy, making jobs harder for everyone.
Right, so it's this complex web of educational barriers, employer attitudes. What about institutional support systems? Are there services to help graduates navigate this?
That's another gap, unfortunately. The whole idea of dedicated disability support services, that's actually quite unfamiliar in most Vietnamese universities. Only a very small number have set them up. Student unions might offer some voluntary help, which is great, but those professional services that could really bridge the gap between study and work, largely missing. And there's another specific hurdle: government job health checks. Often, a visual impairment gets marked down as poor health, which can automatically make a candidate less competitive, even if their vision has absolutely no bearing on the job itself.
That paints a pretty challenging picture. But the report doesn't just focus on the barriers, does it? It also emphasizes the strengths, the capabilities these individuals possess.
Absolutely. And this is really important. Despite all these obstacles, the study highlights their remarkable strengths. Visually impaired graduates consistently show incredible resilience, a strong ability to self-learn, and they're often very tech-savvy. Proficient with screen readers, that's the software that reads out what's on the screen, and skilled with smartphones for communication, assignments, everything, they are fully capable of contributing meaningfully, individually, and as part of a team. Many also have strong independent living skills managing daily life, cooking, cleaning. And the survey results: they showed high self-confidence, strong work ethics, a real desire for ongoing professional development. Their work ethic score, for example, averaged 4.43 out of 5. That signals honesty, determination, qualities any employer should value highly.
Those are huge assets, skills and traits that you'd think would be incredibly valuable to any employer. And you mentioned earlier, the report notes that employers who have actually hired visually impaired people tend to have really positive experiences.
Yes, absolutely. That came through loud and clear. Those employers who've taken this step, who have visually impaired individuals on their teams, they consistently mention their discipline, reliability, commitment. And in certain specialized roles like teaching computer skills or Braille music to other blind students, or providing library services for visually impaired readers, they actually perform better than sighted colleagues because they understand the needs implicitly. Which raises that question again, doesn't it? If the firsthand experience is so positive, why are the broader perceptions still lagging? The report suggests quite powerfully that if society truly saw disabled individuals as members with a fundamental right to work, these opportunities would just be shared naturally.
That's a really profound point. It shifts the whole perspective. So, looking at the success stories, what factors did the study identify as being key to actually improving employability? What helps break through?
Several key factors emerged. Strong family encouragement is huge. Parents often invest so much to help their children pursue higher education. Access to assistive technology, like those screen readers we talked about, is absolutely critical. It removes that information barrier. And perhaps most importantly, internships during their studies. They play a vital role. Some universities let students find their own internship placements. And if the company is properly informed and prepared, they create a genuinely accommodating environment. And this actually leads to a really interesting principle from the research. If an environment is made accessible for those facing the greatest challenges, it will be optimally accessible for most people in the community. It's this idea that designing for accessibility benefits everyone, not just the few.
So it really comes back to that idea, the challenge isn't the individuals, it's the system. The lack of accessibility, the lack of awareness. I remember reading one anecdote in the report. It really seemed to capture the spirit, the confidence of these graduates.
Yes, there were many inspiring stories. That one about the blind female university student was quite striking. Someone asked her if using a white cane affected her appearance, made her self-conscious. And her response was just full of confidence. She said, "I think it makes me stand out more. We are all young and beautiful. I am not as pretty as they are, but when we go out together, my blindness and my cane make me more noticeable than them." She even shared a time she got a free drink because of it, joking that her friends spend money on clothes but still lose to my white cane. It just really shows how they can reframe perceptions, turn perceived limitations into something unique, even an advantage. It says so much about their courage.
That's such a powerful perspective, reframing weakness into strength. Okay, so wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for us, for our listeners, reflecting on this deep dive?
Well, I think this deep dive really underscores that inclusive employment isn't, just charity. It's not just ticking a box. It is genuinely smart, sustainable, and ethical business practice. The capabilities are there. They're immense. When given the opportunity, these graduates contribute significantly. The real challenge, the ongoing work, is about dismantling those systemic barriers and actively shifting the outdated perceptions that are still holding things back.
So, thinking about you, our listener, what can you take away from this? How can we all contribute to a future where inclusive employment is just normal, seen as the smart, ethical thing it is?
Yeah, we really encourage you to think about how you can challenge those existing perceptions, how you can advocate for change. Whether you're an employer, maybe an HR leader, an educator, a policymaker, you have influence. You can act on these findings. That means actively working towards more inclusive systems, adopting recruitment practices that are genuinely accessible, like ensuring application forms don't accidentally screen people out, or that health checks are truly relevant to the job, not just a blanket exclusion based on vision. It means fostering real workplace support, ensuring accessible materials are ready from day one. Just think, how can your organization, your community, contribute to making the environment truly friendly and inclusive? Remember that principle. Making things accessible for the few often makes things better for everyone.
What we've really explored today is it's a story of incredible progress, yes, but also immense potential that's hitting up against these persistent systemic barriers. These visually impaired graduates in Vietnam, as the report calls them, they're an elite group. They have knowledge, expertise, courage. They're ready, eager to contribute. If you're interested in reading the full report or maybe connecting with the project for collaboration, you can reach out directly. The lead researcher is Mr. Trần Bá Thiện. His email is tranbathien2013 GMAILCOM. That's tranbathin2013 @gmail.com.
And for more about the Sao Mai Center itself and all the great work they do, you can visit their website at saomaicenter.org, GEIAUI. That's SAOMAICENTERDOTORG/VI.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep advocating for a more inclusive world for everyone.